her door. Acting on impulse, she had reached for a weapon and swung it at the intruder. She had done such a good job defending her home that the man now appeared dead at her feet. With some relief, she saw his chest rise and fall. She relaxed a little and allowed herself the luxury of looking at him more closely. He was probably about 30 years in age, with the darkest brown hair, verging on black, cut short, neat and slightly longer on top, causing it to fall slightly tousled to one side, as if he'd not long run his hand through it. He was clean-shaven, with neat, well-shaped sideburns that did not distract from his handsome features. He was healthy-looking, with broad shoulders and muscular thighs. However, his face carried the signs of solemnity in the form of 2 deep furrows between his brows and faint shadows below his eyes. His clothes, though hardy and splattered with mud, were well made and did not hint at his profession. His boots were made of expensive leather and, thought Beth, probably stolen. Who was this man, and what did he want from her? Lost in thought, she did not notice the slight flicker in his eyes. When she finally retraced his body and looked upon his face, she realized, with a start, that a pair of hazel eyes were looking at her. She lifted the pan in readiness, but his expression did not change. He continued to stare, his eyes narrowing as if he struggled to focus upon her. He attempted to lift his head, but the effort was too much. He groaned, and his head fell back. Slowly he lifted his gaze to look at her again, but, as if he could not bear the sight of her, slowly closed them and turned his head away to shut her out. Beth let out the breath she had been holding and lowered the pan once more. The intruder was too ill to be a threat at the moment, she realized, but at some point he would recover, and then what was he capable of doing? Beth gnawed at her bottom lip as she considered her next move. She wanted him out of her home, and the only way to do that was to remove him before he regained full consciousness. From the length of him, he looked to be 6 feet tall when standing, but he was not overweight. She mentally measured the distance to the door. If she managed to drag him to the other side of the threshold, she could lock him outside before he recovered. He was a man, so hunger and a need for a drink would soon send him on his way. At least she hoped they would. She placed her pan on the table and walked around his inert body, careful not to disturb him. He was all muscle and sinew, but each limb was well-shaped and strong, perfect for dragging him across the room with. Beth decided to grab hold of one of his legs, as it was booted and clothed, and she would not have to touch the man himself. Beth watched his face for signs of waking as she crouched down and carefully lifted his right foot. The polished leather was soft and smooth to the touch, but the leg felt far heavier than she had expected. Fearing the boot would come off in her hands when she pulled, Beth cradled it under her arm and held onto his knee. She paused for a moment, reflecting on the ridiculousness of the situation. This morning, when she woke to birdsong and the sun streaming through her bedroom window, she had not expected that only a few hours later she would be holding the leg of a man in her arms. Beth braced herself and gradually pulled. The task was more cumbersome than she had anticipated, and despite using all her strength, the intruder moved very little. She attempted to pick up both his legs, with the vain hope it would make the task easier. But holding two at the same time was unwieldy and difficult to obtain a secure grip. She lowered each leg in turn and decided to try his arms instead. Beth briskly circled the man again, crouched on her haunches and selected a wrist. It was warm and well-shaped, with a fine scattering of dark hairs disappearing under the sleeve of his jacket and white cotton shirt. This intimate discovery caught her off guard and set off a train of thought as to whether his arms and chest were similarly covered. Beth gave herself a mental shake and forced herself to concentrate on obtaining